Toparlanma ve Çözümler paneli için bugün bir aradayız. Çok kıymetli panelistlerimizle. Siz 23'te yıkıcı.
Now, as you know, in February we had a very destructive earthquake, and that is why very happy to be having this panel, because it's been 9 months and we still see the destructive results of this earthquake. The international society, local actors, municipalities, public institutions have all been working with extraordinary efforts for speedy recovery after this earthquake. And of course, we are not trying to reconstruct, but we want to reconstruct in a more resilient fashion. So that's what all our efforts are for. And in this panel, we have institution representatives who have devoted themselves to this, and we are going to be hearing about quick recovery and creating a shared vision in the area for the medium to long term. And we will be hearing about best practices and takeaways that have been generated until now. Of course, recovery after an earthquake is not just about shelter. You need to create sources for people to make a living. And people need to have sustainable employment, regular income. They need healthcare and education services, and also many other local services, also recreation, socializing. These are all needs of the dwellers in the region. So we feel the need for a rapid normalization, and all activities need to be human-centered in that sense, and they need to be able to respond to the needs of the people impacted by the earthquake. So I would like to turn to our panel now. First of all, we'll start with our local governments from the Adıyaman municipality. Mehmet Bereket is with us, and we will be talking about Adıyaman's recovery infrastructure, municipality services. They have a lot of needs, and they have also done a lot. So let's hear from you. What is the situation? What are your observations? We would like to hear from you. Thank you very much for this opportunity. It is very, very valuable to find this opportunity to express ourselves. So before I start, I would like to deliver the greetings of Süleyman Kılınç, our mayor. So I think we had a presentation. Can we please put that up?
Güvenli alana geçiyoruz bizler şu an. Vatandaşları görüyorsunuz. Deprem oluyor gene.
Annemi de kurtarın.
Anneni de kurtaracağız gözlerce.
Arıdan küçük çocuğun ilk sözleri ise annemler.
Hatirin marto teresa, hatirin marto.
Teşekkürler. 6 Şubat
Yes, so on the 6th of February 2023, there were 2 consecutive earthquakes that struck. And of course, we experienced it physically. Maybe we can give the floor to someone else. Yes, it was quite a striking video, and yes, the impacts of the earthquake were felt deeply in Adıyaman, and the recovery process still continues. So let's turn to Mr. Hasan in a while, and I would like to continue with Mr. Hamit, Doğan, Regional Coordinator from UNDP. He is living in Gaziantep, and we want to hear his experience, and we also would like to hear about the common vision and collaboration between institutions, because we all believe in the importance of this. So could you please share your observations and experiences in this regard? Yes, of course. Thank you very much, Ms. Seher. First of all, welcome, and I would like to thank everyone who put effort into organizing the Marmara Urban Forum. Now, the 6th of February brought about a lot of disasters. It was the disaster of the century, as we refer to it. And I would like to send out my condolences to everyone who passed away. May they rest in peace. We still have those who are injured, both psychologically and physiologically. So I wish them speedy recoveries. I did have a presentation, if you can put it up.
Evet, daha çok koordinasyonun
Yes, so I would like to refer to the critical role of coordination. So UNDP, the United Nations Development Program, started its activities in Turkey in '65. I wanted to talk about my institution a little bit. As of the second half of 1990, we started our activities in the cities which were now struck by the earthquake. This was very important in terms of the coordination, because since we were already there, as we were conducting our activities, we saw the benefits. So the 6th of February 2023, it impacted a huge area, 11 provinces, 15 million people, 110,000 square kilometers. It was a huge destruction. Now, whatever we do, whatever interventions we have, if we cannot measure something, we cannot manage it. This is a quote from a famous guru, Peter Drucker. And first you need to measure something, analyze the existing situation, and then you can have an intervention. And of course, this has various conditions. It needs to be transparent, it needs to be confirmed, and you need to avoid duplication. And so you need to fulfill all these conditions, and then you need to share the information you gather with other institutions. And in that scope, we work together with the Presidency of the Republic of Turkey Strategy and Budget Directorate. And we had the TEDA analysis, the most comprehensive existing situation analysis, and we ran these activities around the TERA program, not TEDA, correction, and many of the statistics you actually hear in the press comes out from this report, really. So this has been guiding for many institutions. Now, coordination, of course, the UN has many institutions specializing in various areas, and they are active in various parts of the world. For that reason, each institution has its own area of expertise. And as UNDP, we have accumulated experience around early recovery. So we had 10 work groups for coordination. They were established very quickly, and our governorates, municipalities, all civil society organizations. We also had ambassadors coming from Ankara who worked with us at the local level because they had experiences that they had collected in other countries. And basically UNDP led the early recovery program. Now, coordination is something that is very important even during normal times, even when everything is okay. There is a coordination required. It could be a wedding party, it could be a dinner party, it could be a forum like this that you're organizing, or it could just be a very simple dinner for friends at home. You always need coordination. And especially during challenging times like this, times of disaster, the importance of coordination is multiplied. Because people are in shock, and the resources are limited, insufficient, scarce. For example, the municipality has a role that you assign to them, but they can't do it because their building has collapsed. Or you ask for some support from the Chamber of Trade and Industry, but their staff has passed away. So during these challenging times, we assigned various coordinating bodies like governors or mayors, so they manage that process efficiently. So coordination becomes much more important during challenging times. Then there is the efficient and productive use of resources. On one side, there could be something that needs to be done that is vital, but then you could also be receiving some resources that are not very necessary. For example, for people with celiac disease, they need gluten-free bread, but if you send them normal bread, then that's a waste. So we need to focus on all of those details. And as the UNDP, in line with our job description, our role description, and as soon as Terra was announced, we picked these 4 areas of support, and we selected them as our areas of responsibility. We already had existing projects, so we integrated these bullet points to them as well. Plus, we also created new projects in a very short amount of time. And at the beginning, as UNDP, we led the early recovery process, and now our coordination role continues, but of course it's different, because now there is financial empowerment that is needed, because the humanitarian aid and emergency intervention period is over. Now in Adıyaman, Kahramanmaraş, Hatay, we still have meetings with local, national, and international institutions, and we share information, and we deliver it to the relevant institutions. And as UNDP, we have 4 perspectives, and I wanted to share some of our projects with you. After the earthquake, the timeline looked like this. Of course, search and rescue, safety, emergency interventions, that was the first phase, and then the humanitarian aid and shelter process. And then after that, now we are in the early recovery process. It is very challenging. It's a long-term task, and this is very much in line with the UNDP roles in general. So we have more and more on our shoulders now. Now, when you look at it, Turkey is a country that is prone to earthquakes, and not just earthquakes, there are other disasters as well. Now, our ministry announced that there were around 56 earthquakes which were of magnitude 6 or higher in the past 100 years. So basically, that is the amount of earthquakes that we are subject to, and for that reason, we have to invest more into coordination. We need to have simulations, drills, and both as individuals and as local governments and NGOs, UN institutions, you know, together with all stakeholders, we need to assume our responsibility and complete our preparations. This was not a one-time thing. God forbid, it can happen anytime, anywhere. So, Gaziantep and Adana city centers were relatively less impacted by the earthquake, and together with their chambers of commerce and NGOs, we worked towards raising awareness and being prepared for future disasters. And we are starting a project called Regional Development and Reconstruction. It will include all 11 provinces which were impacted by the earthquake. As we said, this is quite a draining process. It's quite a challenging process. It is not something one NGO, one association, or one foundation can cope with. So we need to combine our powers, and we need to continue our well-intentioned efforts all together. And I want to talk about our activities. Since day one after the earthquake, we have been in the field, just like all other institutions, like you, like all of us, and we did our best to be able to enable a speedy recovery. You just see some examples here on the screen. And also, our donors have been very important in these past 6 months after the earthquakes in Turkey. We had a lot of grants, and we act as intermediaries, and we delivered these to the earthquake zone. So we would like to thank our esteemed donors. And our representative of UNDP Turkey, Ms. Louisa Vinton, has a message. She thanks our donors very much, and she says there are an immense amount of needs. So the international society, we call them to generously support Turkey once again. So I wanted to share that with you. And if you have any questions or feedback, I'd be happy to receive them. And this is a photo of the UNDP family. Thank you very much.
Derslerimiz olduğunu da düşünüyoruz.
Yes, I think we have a lot of lessons learned. This is a long-term recovery plan. It's a long path, and each institution has its own responsibilities. And you talked about the Terra report. It was our first evaluation report, and you talked about how you worked in collaboration with the presidency of Turkey. And this Terra report puts forth a vision, greener, and it encompasses a lot of other subjects. And to be able to realize this vision, all individuals and institutions have important roles. Thank you very much for your contributions, and it was a great summary of UNDP activities. So now I'd like to turn to Kahramanmaraş. As I said at the beginning of my speech, when we talk about recovery, we're not just talking about shelter. We are talking about income resources, and that is very important for the region to stand back up in the medium to long term. And the Kahramanmaraş Chamber of Industry has very important activities, and also for women entrepreneurs and women enterprises. We had a grant program, which was also very important. I believe you will also refer to that. So in the medium to long term, if you could share your recovery vision as a chamber, that would be appreciated. Thank you very much. Will it be one round or 2 rounds? No, it will be 1 round. Maybe if you receive questions, we'll come back to you. Okay, thank you. I'm Hikmet Gümüşer. I am the Deputy President of the Kahramanmaraş Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and I am also a board member at Kahramanmaraş Kipa Holding, and I was born and raised in Kahramanmaraş. I left during high school, and then I came back to Kahramanmaraş after I completed my education. Now, the video that Mr. Mehmet shared, I don't know if it had the same impact on everyone in this hall, but for someone who was there on that day, it has very deep meanings. Understanding the impact of the earthquake. I mean, I know that everyone joined forces, and we saw the power of civil society in the field, but experiencing this physically, one-to-one there, was very painful. And I hope no place on the world, I mean, not just Turkey or Adıyaman or Kahramanmaraş, I hope no place in the world ever experiences such a huge earthquake. First of all, such a huge land earthquake. Without civil initiatives and without valuable institutions like UNDP, or without support, basically. I mean, we received so much support from so many institutions. You probably know the brand Moncler. I'm pronouncing the name because we are in a closed circle here. They send 100,000 euros. Inditex Group, the Zara Group, they sent us €1 million. And they did this because they wanted to help. They said, you know, buy one container on us. So if we are in solidarity and if the civil society exists, then you can try and overcome such devastating instances. And we were all focusing on one thing at the time. We were all there in the field, and we said, someone who has something needs to share it with another who does not have that. If my house is standing up and if it's safe, then I need to share it with others. Hundreds of people came to take showers at my apartment, for example, or I gave my clothes away to many people. Because to understand the psychology of someone whose house has collapsed, I mean, you would really need to experience it. I hope you never do, by the way. But basically, you take your shoes and your jacket and you're just thankful that you're alive. And after that, you're just on the street. So starting of day one, there was a variety of needs. Of course, first of all, people were thankful that they were alive. But in time, the needs grew. Those who had babies needed diapers. The elderly also needed diapers. Then there was no bread in the city. There was no cooked food. And it was a very cold time as well. So in the first few weeks, heating was a problem. There was a huge need for blankets and clothing and tents. But in time, these needs evolved. Now, I don't want to go into the details of everything we experienced on the first few days post-earthquake, but Mr. Hamit summarized it very well, and I took notes. I think the summary is, number one is emergency intervention, and then humanitarian aid, and then this part, the early recovery process, which we are going through right now. The emergency intervention and humanitarian aid phases have now been completed, and thanks to everyone who has supported us. It wasn't easy, but with your support, with the support of civil society, we managed to overcome these first two phases. In the third phase, we need to enable early recovery. And as the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Kahramanmaraş, we were in the field as of day one, because Kahramanmaraş is a little different compared to the other cities impacted by the earthquake. We rank number 2 in the death toll, and also commercially there is the greatest damage created because there are so many enterprises in our city. So in early recovery phase, we are going through a period where people's needs are shifting from humanitarian needs to financial needs. And what we did was we contacted UNDP at that point. And I personally took initiative and I knocked on the door of UNDP. It was the 15th of March, I remember. And I said, look, I know you want to provide support in the field, and we've already witnessed a lot of your support. But now people here seriously need cash, because in the earthquake in Kahramanmaraş, the greatest destruction was created in the city center, and there were a lot of offices, workplaces there, and they all collapsed. So I said, if you can support them, you know, they can buy computers, pay for their rent, and at least we can show them our intention, even if we can't do anything more. So they responded to our call, and they started with $100,000, and then it went to incredible figures. And my greatest recognition for UN and UNDP, starting with Ms. Louisa, is that they never turned down our demands. Whatever we asked for, they gave us even more. And in terms of tending to wounds, they quickly started to tackle the issues we brought up. So as the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, we contacted the state institutions several times, and we sent so many letters for the recovery of our cities. We actually delivered these letters directly to ministers sometimes, and they weren't realized very quickly. Some of our demands are still on standby. But we had our Women Entrepreneurs initiative, and that was very quickly completed. We started on the 1st of April, and on the 1st of August, so in 4 months, 850 women had their applications reviewed, and 450 of them were interviewed together with the UNDP delegation. And after listening to all 423 of them, around 200 of them received their grants based on criteria, and we supported these women. Of course, the speed here was very important, and also having an early response to the demands was very much in line with the spirit of the early recovery process. And at that point, I would like to thank the field teams and executive team of UNDP very much. And these programs are still ongoing. We are now going to start with men. There are more than 3,700 applications in Kahramanmaraş. We will start reviewing these applications, and our goal is to guide UNDP accurately in Kahramanmaraş, and not just UNDP. There are many institutions that we want to mobilize in the field during this early recovery process. I don't want to take up too much of your time. There's a lot to say when we're talking about the earthquake, but lastly, I'd just like to touch upon one issue. If you stretch your legs and watch TV at home, you will see that this process is finalized and life is back to normal. But that is not the case. This is sort of similar to the ostrich that digs its head into the sand. Now, there are so many enterprises that were impacted, and this is at our office as well. We had a huge death toll. There are those who lost their extremities, those who lost their parents, so those who lost their children, their psychology is shattered. So all of this only means something to you if you try to understand the situation. And it was about 4 weeks ago, you know EBRD. So EBRD visited Kahramanmaraş together with their executive team, and they wanted to have a field visit, a field trip. And together with the Turkish Exporters Assembly and the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I took them to an area where we had built shelter, 300 houses. And of course, EBRD, just like UNDP, is wanting to support the region. But for them to understand the extent of this pain, I had to show them things. So we went to the container city, and you can imagine the crowd coming from EBRD, quite high-level people. So there were these children there who embraced them, and they hugged these representatives coming from EBRD. And all of a sudden, as we were talking about financials and numbers and things, they were very surprised. We went into a very different story, and the children said, you know, we want to go to school, but we don't have course books because all of our course books were in our houses, so can you buy us course books? And of course, they witnessed many other problems. They only spent half an hour there, but they witnessed so much. And since they came to Kahramanmaraş, for the past 3 weeks, collected money amongst themselves, and with around 150,000 Turkish liras, they bought a tennis table and some toys, and now they're sending all of those. So if the conscience of someone is scored from 0 to 100, when you visit the area, someone who is at 0 can go all the way up to 100 in their conscience score. So both for Kahramanmaraş, Gaziantep, Adıyaman, Hatay, Malatya, for all of them, I would like to thank all the institutions who supported all these cities, and I would like to particularly thank UNDP, which means a lot to me. Thank you very much, Mr. Hikmet.
Tabii bizlerin siz depremi
Now you actually witnessed the earthquake, and it's not possible for us to fully understand you, what you've been through, but please know that we stand by you. I have a question. You have a very important role. You're an executive at the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, and you're leading a huge sector. So especially after the earthquake, we talked about the Turkish economy, and we know that SMEs form the backbone of the Turkish economy, and they incurred serious losses. And there was a massive workforce loss as well. So in terms of midterm and long-term recovery, how can we recover? How can we revive the economy and make it even better than it was in the past? What would you like to say about that? Sure, can you hear me? Okay. Let me put it this way. In Kahramanmaraş, there are a total of 800 factories and around 16,000 SMEs. Especially, we call these micro businesses, for example, like a pharmacy. Now, just imagine a pharmacist and think of the 5th of February. They are on night shift. We're talking about a city with a population of 800,000 people, and the monthly revenue would be around 600, 800,000 Turkish liras. The minimum wage is 8,000, and the rent would be around 10,000 Turkish liras. And on the night of February 6th, we have the devastating earthquake. There's chaos everywhere, and the population has gone down by the thousands. The pharmacist still operates in this city. The revenue has gone down from 500,000 to 200,000 a month. The wage has gone up to 15,000, and you can't actually find someone to employ with a minimum wage, and the rents have gone up to 30,000. Now put yourself in the shoes of this pharmacist. What would you do? Especially in Kahramanmaraş. Now answering Seher's question, especially for small businesses, there's no opportunity for exports, there's nothing. So we think that given the current Turkish economic agenda, unfortunately, because of the monetary shrinkage, we've had to apply this. Now it's become more expensive to take out a loan. There's no more house loans, the car loans. So in this environment, and including the earthquake cities in this plan, in our opinion, is very wrong. So what we're saying is that, especially in Kahramanmaraş, for the 16,000 small and micro enterprises, don't get their insurance premiums for their employees. In addition to that, we should provide them with rent support. And again, in addition to that, let them pay their VAT in installments. Again, increase the installments for their credit card payments. For Malatya, Adıyaman, Kahramanmaraş, the number of installments should be at least 12. And the work volume should be increased in these cities. While there are some campaigns for certain suppliers in these earthquake cities, it's not put into action. So we need more effective actions to revive the economy. And we as the chamber focus on 4 pillars. First of all, from the businesses in our cities, the government should not ask for employer or employee insurance premiums. The installments should go up to 12 installments. Thirdly, for the finance products, the interest rates should be at least 10 points lower than the policy rates. And fourthly, in Kahramanmaraş, for exporters in Kahramanmaraş, a special currency rate should be applied. So what we refer to as 4 cities and 2 districts, we had a very lively economy. So we need a more compassionate approach to these cities and districts in particular. Thank you very much, Mr. Hikmet, for your analyses. Now, Mehmet, Mr. Mehmet, I'd like to come back to you as the Adıyaman municipality, both after the earthquake and at the time of response and for recovery. You have very important projects in place. We know the needs are endless. The list is endless, and we are ready to support you. But what would you like to tell us about your plans in terms of recovery? What needs have you identified? Could you talk a bit about your projects? Can you hear me? I would like to apologize once again. During the earthquake, we had to take very quick action because the weather conditions were not appropriate. People were not able to get back into their homes. And so the first thing that we did was for our buildings, our social buildings that had little impact, we made sure people were settled there. Everyone's mobile phones, the network system collapsed. We called in everyone we could reach. We have 132 employees. We were only able to reach 60 of them. Some of them had lost their lives. Some of them were under the rubble. Therefore, we, with the help of the first responders that we could reach, we appointed them to our buildings. The weather went down to -18 at some nights, and people were out on the streets. So in our buildings, we were able to host up to around 4,000 people, but of course many more were out on the streets. So we used our pools, our social buildings. We had our indoor pools to store food, for example, that was coming in. People who had licenses to drive a forklift, we appointed them. And starting on the 3rd day, aid started to come in. And while we physically experienced the earthquake, you too also felt the earthquake emotionally, and we would like to thank each and every one of you for standing with us, especially NGOs. And as the aid started coming in, we started to use our sports, our gyms, and then it became such that there was too much aid coming in, and we started to search for warehouses. We asked factories if they had any vacant warehouses so that the aid coming in wouldn't spoil and so that we could distribute it quickly. And once we did that, we started to use our vehicles, coordinate our vehicles for the distribution, especially not just to the cities, but to the villages, because we are not a metropolitan municipality. We have rural areas. We also have a cooking center. We have chefs working there. So together with the Red Crescent and then with our American friends, we used Adıyaman University's kitchen to provide support because we were preparing food to feed 50,000 people a day. And again, as a municipality, because people were out on the streets, we discussed how we could provide heating. We said for those who have cars, vehicles, we provided fuel because people were not able to find a place to stay in. Therefore, we provided fuel support so that people could at least keep warm in their cars and stay out of the cold. And then we had, of course, external aid coming in. We needed to coordinate all those items coming in. There were hygienic items, food items, etc., and other items. And we worked in coordination with the relevant organization. And we, of course, cannot forget the NGOs and UNDP, who was with us from day one. And after the third, fifth day, we were in continuous collaboration with UNDP, and we would like to extend our gratitude to UNDP. Our top priority was children. And talking to our mayor, we said we had to do something immediately about children because children are the ones who experience this trauma the most. And we worked with the State Theatre and the Ministry of Culture, the Department of Fine Arts. We organized various plays and other activities, performances for children. And then the private sector also got involved. They provided free of charge, again, the leading industrial businesses in Turkey provided us with a lot of support. So we organized several activities, and we invited Acun Ilıcalı. And the reason that we called Acun Ilıcalı in was because children, young people love him, and he brought a lot of toys for them because people were not able to get back into their homes. Children didn't have toys to play with. So we thank Acun for coming as well, and he distributed toys to children. Our second priority was young people, especially as they were getting ready for the university national exam. And the citizens, people that we were able to settle in tents and other places, we have a place called Erken, the Adıyaman Culture and Training Center. So we immediately organized prep training, tutorships for young people because the tents didn't provide an appropriate space to study. This center provided a more convenient, comfortable environment for studying, and we thought that that would help them to get better scores. So we provided free university prep courses as the municipality for these students. We provided them with breakfast because we couldn't talk about homes anymore. We're talking about people living in tents that are 9 square meters, people crammed in these tents. So when we talk about what we did, maybe giving these facts will make you understand how valuable these efforts were. Coming back to young people, after young people, our next priority was women, because they need to be part of the production cycle. There's the traumatic side to this event, And again, for women, we have a center called ADİMEK, the Vocational Skills Center for Women in Adıyaman. The buildings that were relatively strong, we opened courses in these buildings for women where they could gain new skills or hone their skills. And we, of course, had to create a women's cooperative so that women could continue to produce. So this is not just a social thing. You have to take the economic aspect into account as well. Accordingly, we created a women's cooperative so that women could produce and sell their products. And this was already one of our projects before the earthquake. We had a project for shoemaking, but of course that got interrupted because of the earthquake. However, we needed to complete that project, and we have relaunched it. And once it becomes live, 1,500 women aged between 18 to 25 will provide jobs to 1,500 women for shoemaking. Now, are these efforts sufficient? No, of course not. For children in the container cities, prefabricated cities, regarding food and other essential needs, staples, we continue to distribute support, and we are still doing that. We also organize social activities, and to identify the problems on site, we continuously send our employees out in the field and ask them to determine any problems that concern the municipality so that we can solve those problems. Again, for children, we had movies together with the Ministry of Culture. We had cinema performances, and we also had our own municipal activities for children. For women, I don't want to be advertising the company, that's why I won't give the name, but one of the big companies in Turkey, they provided us with clothes, dresses, and these dresses will have beads, and for women, for each dress that they put beads on, they will earn money, and so that was one of our activities. And hopefully tomorrow we will be launching that project. And in Adıyaman, although we're not as big as Kahramanmaraş, we also are a major player in the textiles industry. So in terms of raising employees, educating employees for the textiles industry, we are currently talking to 2 NGOs. They're going to provide us with the equipment so that women in Adıyaman will be able to work and produce in the textiles industry. Is my time up? Okay. These are the activities that concern my department, but apart from that, the other departments under our municipality have their own activities. We launched a social market. We are about to launch the second of these social markets, again with the support of UNDP. With UNDP's contribution, we have a
Burada olan olmayan bize
we have an accessibility project. And once again, I apologize for being emotional in the beginning, and thank you for your patience. Thank you very much. When we talk about municipalities, we always think about infrastructure. Infrastructure comes to mind, but your vision shows us that you are a very social organization. You remind us of social municipality. Let me add something related to that. Can you hear me? As a municipality, there's a different kind of understanding. As a municipality, you don't hang men, you don't print money. Apart from that, you can do everything. Now, you can do sidewalks, parks. If you do these, it doesn't bring too much of a benefit to you, but if you don't do these, it takes a lot away from you. And now, of course, I'm a bit emotional, so I can say that our municipality is what we do from the heart. And without an economy, your city will be empty. So you have to focus on these activities. Thank you very much. We can tell that it comes from the heart, all the things that you've explained to us. And as we talked in the beginning, yes, you can make sidewalks, you can do the infrastructure, but to make people turn back to their normal lives, it's just as important as the other work, especially for women, girls, and young people. I would like to thank you for all your efforts on their behalf. Well done. As our time is running up, I'd like to give the floor, the last word, to Arzu Karaarslan Azizoğlu. She's been working at UNDP. She's been working in sustainability and after the earthquake in terms of social development and rural SMEs, local SMEs. She's been supporting them. So Arzu, let's listen to you as to what you have been doing to get the city back up on its feet and its vision for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You know, they say geography is your fate, and we are experiencing that. I was born in a very small village in Bismil. Bismil is a district of Diyarbakır, and I actually started development work mostly in the southeastern Anatolia region. I worked in Şırnak and other provinces of the region, but a development professional can face many different crises, and I faced many of them. I have been working in UNDP for 9 years, and no day is like the previous one, because globally, what you observe, what you plan, what you strategize upon, turns into something completely different when you're in the field, because the realities in the field are different from those you see when you're sitting by the table. So in UNDP, we started the crises with the Solidarity for Syria. And our office was actually a boutique office, you know, doing boutique projects. But we really turned into an expert team in crises, starting with the situation in Syria. Of course, these are very painful, very emotional processes, but they teach you a lot. And first of all, you learn about resilience, which is the theme of this forum as well. You learn what type of interventions to develop when you face crises. And what we did was, in terms of response and resilience in the Syria crisis, what we learned actually helped us a lot when we were dealing with the earthquake situation, because we were faced with a reality. During the pandemic, we made a lot of use from what we learned in Syria, because we faced something in the pandemic which was never before seen across the world. We were locked up in our houses, we couldn't go outside, and as Hikmet mentioned, the economy was damaged significantly. Mobility was impacted. And now let's look at other groups, which is what UNDP does. You know, for example, persons with disabilities, elderly, children, youth. We need to look at all these different groups, which is not something all institutions do, because each of these groups experience crises very differently. And during the COVID crisis, we had to strengthen these muscles. So we had to discover what we could do to ensure the recovery of different social groups during the pandemic. And right after that, when we thought we had completed that process, we were faced with the natural disaster, the earthquake reality, and it was very painful. We lost loved ones. And as UNDP, we are actually not a humanitarian aid organization. That's not our role. But our representative came together with us as of day one and set up a team, because the emergency search and rescue lasted for 3-4 days. And right after that, there would be different needs that were revealed, and that would be the first step towards social and economic recovery. So as of day one, we started to plan how we would go to the field, what we should prioritize on, who we should collaborate with when we reach day 4. Now, all of these may seem like office work, but what we relied upon was the fact that we have been existing in the region since the mid-90s, and we have been running development programs. So what is development? I mean, people can't find bread, people can't find mats to sleep on. They don't have toys, as Mehmet mentioned. They don't have shelter. But we have to think about development despite all of these conditions. If we want to go back to the routine, if we want to go back to normal, we have to consider all these dynamics in the cities. I'm not going to talk too much, but basically, I would like to say a couple of things about what we need to focus on when we're carrying out activities. First of all, we must be localized. We should work very closely with our local partners. We may know the best. We may think that we are the most technical people, but that doesn't mean we know what's best for them, because real development can only come through the accurate evaluation of the demands coming from the field. So that was an important lesson learned for us. And today, both Mr. Mehmet and Mr. Hikmet talked about it, with the demands and needs that we received from the local level, from the field. We started to seek funds and we started to develop programs. And then, if you ask me what I would list as number 2 is you need to be agile. It was a term that was used very much during COVID as well. And you need to be agile. You could be a development institution with a lot of procedures and burdens in that sense, but despite that fact, with the support of your leadership, yes, you need to be transparent and act in line with your rules, but still you need to find a way to be agile, because you need to revive the cities before people erase them off of their minds. People may have left for a brief time. They may have moved to another city or country, or they may be staying with relatives and close ones. But as they return to the city, they need to find an environment that is livable. But if you miss that process, you will not be able to have those people return. That is something experienced during cases of migration as well. So that's why what Mr. Hikmet said is very important. The commercial networks need to be rebuilt, and for that you need to be agile. So you need to be local, agile, and what comes next? Of course, you need to rely upon the role of true coordination at the global level, at the national level, and at the local level. You need to have very good coordination. As an institution, you can't do everything on your own. But if you have coordination between institutions, and what we undertake as UNDP, both during the Terra preparations and at the donor conference, we really assumed a role of coordination, and we really wanted to create coordination with the donors and stakeholders. Now, of course, we need to learn very rapidly when we face crises. Think of a child, think of a baby and how fast they grow. And it's just like that. When you face a crisis, you need to learn very quickly. And another thing that I must say is readiness. Now, of course, this is very challenging. Mr. Tahir talked about it in the opening speech this morning, our mayor. And how can you be ready for everything? Of course, it's not possible. But being open-minded, discussing possible scenarios, and opening this up to debate at the international level and including various institutions, stakeholders, youth, women, elderly, children, different ethnic groups. So you need to make sure that you do your work without leaving anything behind. So that was a very important learning for us as well. And as UNDP Turkey, and our representative is here as well, our next step was being in contact with the institutions at the provincial level and hearing their voices and planning accordingly. So we did all this. We had a lot of debates and discussions. Okay, after that, you need capacity to implement all this. You need human resource. People like Mr. Hamit, Mr. Hikmet, Mr. Mehmet, like Miss Seher, like each and every one of you out there. We need people who want to think about this, who want to spare time for this, who want to learn and who want to teach. We need a human capacity. And of course, we need to create this capacity, particularly in the earthquake region. And this capacity will be very valuable for possible future crises, because we can't say, okay, we overcame this crisis and thankfully we're fine, our cities are back to normal. No, that's not the world we're facing. We will constantly need to cope with crises as a generation. And that is why it is critical to build this capacity. Of course, I don't want to discuss all of this, and I don't want to be speaking on the stage as if I'm a teacher. But what I need to say is that just the way we develop our human capacity and open our hearts, we really need to build our institutional capacity. Our collaborations need to come from the heart, and we need to evaluate needs based on different groups. We need to prioritize, we need to create strategies, and as Mr. Hikmet said, sometimes we work day and night without sleep. And if we have a human resource that is willing to do that, then we can overcome future crises as well. And we can run for the help of countries who came to our help in this crisis. Because we can't just think about ourselves. We always need to focus on helping others in the future as well. So thank you very much for listening to me towards the end of this long day. Thank you very much, Arzu. Yes, crisis can knock on the door of anyone. When you look at the global agenda, there are natural disasters and human-caused disasters, and our country is quite vulnerable in that sense, and we need to be prepared. So everyone needs to be part of this effort, be part of this mission. I would like to thank everyone who was part of this panel. We will have the questions. I don't have any online questions, but if there are any questions, we can receive one or two. Yes, please. Please introduce yourself as well.
I was happy to hear during the last presentation about UN Northwest Syria, and exactly was late for a few days. I remember the photos of the brave Syria civil defense volunteers, the white helmets, while they were rescuing people from under the rubble. They didn't have the needed resources. I just want to have more information how UNDP or UN in general could cooperate with local NGOs in northwest Syria during and after the earthquakes. Thank you very much.
Kuzey Suriye ile olan işbirliğini şey yaptı. Hamit Bey.
Mr. Hamit?
Cooperation after the earthquake with northern Syria, right? You know, this is
Yeah, I think it is to the last presenter because she talked about how UNDP dealt with the earthquake in Syria. I think the microphone was not near, so I will repeat. I said that UN assistance to northwest Syria was late for a few days. And there were not even the equipments needed to rescue people from under the rubble. That caused a lot of losses in souls. I would like to ask how UNDP or UN in general could support or coordinate with the Syrian NGOs in northwest Syria to help them after the earthquake. Thank you. No, how it was.
Thank you very much. I will try to answer as much as I understood. I should continue in English since your question was in English. Actually, we are a country office. Of course, we have a regional office in here, in Turkey. Istanbul, actually, based in Istanbul. As a country office, we are always ready to share our experience.
Çalışma arkadaşlarımızla paylaşmaya açığız, Suriye'de çalışanlarla ve aynı zamanda Gaziantep'te zaten UNDP Suriye ile aynı binada yer alıyoruz. Ama biz şu anda işte Suriye için şunu yapalım, diğerleri için bunu yapalım demek için bulunmuyoruz. Tabii ki deneyimlerimizi paylaşabiliriz.
No, thank you very much for
cevaplarından bahsetti, tepkilerinden bahsetti. Suriye'de evet bir gecikme oldu çünkü sınırı geçme konusu gündeme geldi. Yani sınırı geçebilmemiz aslında Suriye devletinin insani yardımın geçmesine izin vermesine bağlı. Bu da aslında Güvenlik Konseyi kararına bağlı. Her zaman tekrar ettiğimiz bir BM Güvenlik Konseyi kararı. Bildiğiniz gibi veto ile çalışıyor Güvenlik Konseyi. Güvenlik Konseyi içerisinde bazı anlaşmazlıklar olunca insani yardım konusunda da sıkıntılar çıkabiliyor. Ve Türkiye'nin verdiği izin vardı. Birleşmiş Milletler'in Suriye'ye giriş yapması ve ekipman ve mal geçirebilmesi için ama ne yazık ki tabii ki yine de bu sınırı geçmekte zorlanıldı. Çünkü burası oldukça kısıtlı da bir sınır, Kuzeybatı Suriye'ye giriş ama şu an çoğu bu faaliyetlerin Gaziantep'ten yürütülüyor. Yani UNDP Suriye operasyonu Gaziantep'ten yönetiliyor ve Birleşmiş Milletler yardımı Kuzey-Batı Suriye'ye buradan gidiyor. Yani bizim bu oturumda anlattıklarımız Türkiye ile ilgili yardımlar oldu. add something, please, Ms. Seher? Now, volunteers were also very important in this coordination. Both individual volunteers and institutional volunteers had a very important role. After this great disaster, and after many disasters, volunteers have a very important role. Both individual and organized volunteering activities were very important. So we should remember that as well. And as UNDP, we have the new civil participation project, and we believe volunteering activities will be further matured and a capacity will be built in that sense. Thank you. I would like to thank all of our panelists very much, and I would like to thank the participants. Now, of course, we cannot change the past. In February, we experienced a terrible tragedy. It will be part of our history forever. And of course, our solidarity, our unity. I mean, we heard it from each and every one of you. All the regions have their own stories. But on top of all of this, our vision around a recovery, hopefully, will find its place in history as well. We talked about hearing the voices of the locals, and when recovering the region, hearing the actors' voices from the region will be very important. We want to be able to turn this process into an opportunity, and hopefully we will all have contributions, and in the upcoming years we will see a normalized region that is doing very well. I would like to thank everyone once again. Thank you for being here with us.